Hi, in this one we're going to be actually taking a look at a couple of different questions that we'll be coding out using the while loop, or a couple of different problems that we'll be solving using the while loop, so that we get some practice, some hands-on experience with the while loop before we move on to the for loop. So let's just get into it. Now, you can always find this project file in your course resources as always, and well, code along, which would be definitely a better option. Now let's take a look at the first question. The first question says, write a while loop or write a loop in Python to print all the odd numbers between 0 to 20. So just as we saw in the previous one, an even number is a number that is perfectly divisible by 2, or that number modulo 2 should leave a remainder of 0, right? So in this case, we just need to do the exact opposite of that code. So you could actually just pause the video here and go ahead and solve all of these questions by yourself, or you could code along with me. Now, for this question, let's just take the loop control variable I equals 0 because we need to start from 0. Then while I is less than 21 because I needs to go from 0 to 20. And then we write if I mod 2 equals 0, then print I, else do nothing, and then obviously our update statement, which is I equals I plus 1. So when I click on run, it gives me, well, all the even numbers. But what I want to do is, when this happens, I don't want to do anything, but in the else part of this if structure, I want to print I. So when I don't want to do anything, I could just write pass, which is a keyword in Python, and then else print I. So if it is an even number, the loop just passes, or you could simply write, yeah, just pass, or else you could just print I. So if it is not an even number, then it's an odd number, and so you print out I. So when I click on run, it gives me all of the odd numbers from 0 through 20, right? Another way of writing this loop, or a simpler way of writing this loop, would be while I is less than 21, print I plus, print I if I mod 2 is not equal to 0. So what are these new symbols? Now, this symbol is the not equal to symbol, or the not equal to operator. The exclamation mark here, or the exclamation point here, signifies the not operator. This statement could also be written as if not I mod 2 equal to 0, but just for simplicity's sake, we're going to write if I mod 2 is not equal to 0. Then you want to print I. And if I run this, well, I don't get any output. That is because I do not have an update statement. So let me run this again, stop and rerun, and well, I get the same output, right? That was pretty simple. So what we want to do here now is we want to go on to the next question. Write a loop in Python to print all the odd numbers between 250 to 350. So now the questions have changed a little bit, right? So you want to print out all the odd numbers between 250 and 350. It's actually pretty simple. So we start from I equals 250, and then we write while I is less than 351, because you want to count I up until 350, right? So if I is less than 351, then you write if I mod 2 is not equal to 0, you print I, and then obviously your update statement, which is I is equal to I plus 1, and when you run this, well, you get all odd numbers. Yeah, these are too many numbers to check out, but I can assure you these are all odd numbers, right? So, yeah, and you can obviously test it out for yourself. Next, the next question is write a loop in Python to find the average of numbers from 0 to 10. So this one's slightly complicated. I know the level's going higher and higher, and honestly, that's what you're here for. So let's take on this challenge, and it's actually going to be super, super simple. So what we want to do is find the average. What is the formula for finding an average? It is basically sum of all numbers divided by, well, the number of numbers, right? So let's take a look at how to do this. So from 0 to 10, right? Now, obviously we could do something like AVG equals 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 and so on, which is really too much of typing and too much of a headache. What if this was find the average of numbers from 0 to 10,000, right? We couldn't just be manually typing it. So for that, we'll be using a while loop. So now we want our loop to go from 0 to 10, or our loop control variable to go from 0 to the value 10. So that's why we'll write I equals 0. We'll write while I is less than 11. Now, this is where we need to think or make a game plan for this loop. So what we want to do here is first off, find the sum of all the numbers. In this case, how many numbers do we have? We have, well, 11 numbers, that is from 0 to 10, right? So you need to know that your denominator is always going to be 11. So let's just create a variable called denominator and make that 11. And then what we'll do is also create a variable called average, which is currently equal to 0. So what we want to do here is we want to first find the sum of all of these numbers. So for that, we could create another variable called sum equals 0, right? So we've got a control variable I'll just type it out here. It really doesn't matter where I type it out. Just need to make sure that our control variable is initialized, right? So I equals 1. And now what we want to do is at every iteration, we want to write sum equals sum plus I. Why do we write sum equals sum plus I? Because sum is 0 and you want to store the value I after adding it to the sum. So 0 plus 0 is 0, then 0 plus 1 will be 1, then 1 plus 2 will be 3, and so on, right? So that's how we find the sum of all of the numbers. And to do that, we'll have to write an update statement that is I is equal to I plus 1. And once we do that, let's just print out the sum, right? I'm just going to comment all of this out because these lines of code will really clutter up the output. Now when I run this, just like that, it gives us the sum 55, that is from 0 to 10, right? Now to find the average, what we need to do is AVG equals sum divided by the denominator. Simple, right? And then we print out something like average equals comma AVG, and now when I run this, it says average equals 5, which is the correct answer, and that's actually pretty amazing, right? So, well, this was how you would find the average using a while loop. Next, question 4 would be write a loop in Python to find the average of the numbers from 175 to 575. So this is again just going to take the same concepts, but let's try and make the code shorter. In this case, we'll have a sum variable which equals 0, and then we'll have I equals 175, then while I is less than 576, because we need to include the value 575, and then we write sum equals sum plus I, and then I equals I plus 1 to increment the value of I, and then finally AVG equals, well, we need to know how many numbers fall between 175 and 575. That's a good question, right? So how are we actually going to know that? I would leave that up to you, and well, give this video a quick hold so that you could figure that out, and then we continue with this video. Alright, so these are really just about 401 numbers, right? So your denominator value should be 401. Now, In this case, our average would be sum divided by 401, which is, well, the denominator, and then we again print out average equals, comma, AVG, and when I run this, I get the average as 375. Well, that was pretty simple. Yeah. So in the next one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through some for loop questions, uh, the for loop concept, and then the for loop questions. And right after that, we'll be solving certain looping problems using the for and while loops based on which loop suits that problem the best. Until then, if you have any questions, put them down in the comment section, and well, I'll see you in the next one.